They told you goodness would save you. They told you kindness wins in the end. But what if they lied? Because in the real world, the kind are not rewarded, they're used. The honest aren't admired, they're exposed. And the good? They are quietly devoured by the ones who learned how to play the darker game. There's a silent rule buried beneath all civilization. One Machiavelli understood better than anyone. Goodness without power is a slow kind of death. But wait, what if the very thing that makes you good is also what keeps you powerless? You've seen it before, the one who sacrifices everything for others, who forgives too easily, who smiles while their soul erodes. They call it compassion, but deep down it's something else. A fear of being hated, a hunger to be accepted. That's not goodness. That's submission wearing perfume. When Machiavelli wrote The Prince, he wasn't teaching cruelty. He was warning the innocent. He was saying, if you insist on being good in a world built on power, you will suffer. Because every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you bend to keep the peace, you carve a small piece of yourself and hand it to someone else. Piece by piece, you disappear, until one day you wake up polite, agreeable, and hollow. The world loves you for your light, but it only respects your shadow. But wait, you missed something. The problem isn't goodness itself. It's how you use it. Goodness, without understanding human nature, becomes a weapon, turned against you by people who smile with teeth hidden behind charm. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago. That morality is often just strategy dressed in silk. Think about it. Why do we praise kindness in others but reward manipulation in leaders? Why do we secretly follow the ruthless while pretending to admire the noble? It's because our instincts don't care about virtue, they care about power. And when you refuse to understand power, you give it away. You might call it morality, but to the world it looks like weakness. And here's the twist. Even those who manipulate you don't do it because they hate you. They do it because they can. Because you've taught them it's safe to. There's something tragic in that. You believe your kindness makes you loved, but it really makes you harmless. And no one truly respects the harmless, they only tolerate them. But wait, what if there's another way? What if you could keep your heart soft and your mind sharp, to be both kind and untouchable? To turn your goodness into strategy, your empathy into quiet control. Because the truth is, Machiavelli never said you should be evil. He said you should be aware. Aware that the world is not moral, it's transactional. And when you understand that, goodness becomes a tool, not a trap. Picture this. A man walks into a room full of wolves, not with armor, but with awareness. He knows the cost of kindness. He gives when it benefits both, withdraws when it drains him, and smiles, not to please but to observe. That man is not cruel. He's strategic. He's dangerous because his goodness has boundaries. And here's the secret Machiavelli buried between the lines. The world doesn't belong to the wicked. It belongs to those who understand both light and shadow, and know when to use each. But before you learn how to wield that power, you must first confront a darker truth. Why do you keep choosing to be good, even when it destroys you? That answer is where the transformation begins. Have you ever wondered why the kind are always the ones who bleed first? Why the person who gives the most ends up with the least? It isn't bad luck. It's design. Because beneath every polite smile, every soft voice, every "it's okay" hides a transaction. And in that silent exchange, the one who feels more always loses. You think people love honesty. They don't. They love advantage. They love control dressed as affection. They love to find someone who won't fight back. But wait, what if emotion itself was never meant to be shared freely? Let me tell you a truth few will ever admit. Every relationship is a balance of power. One gives, one takes, and the moment that balance breaks, love turns into leverage. It starts quietly. You open up, you trust, you reveal. And while you believe you're connecting, they're calculating, measuring how much of you they can own. Not always consciously. Sometimes it's instinct. The human brain is wired not for love, but for survival. You see, emotion is the oldest currency on Earth. And just like money, it's valuable only when it's scarce. Give too much and its worth collapses. Hold it back and people start to chase it. That's why indifference feels magnetic. But you missed something. It isn't manipulation. It's biology. The primitive mind doesn't crave peace, it craves challenge. The moment you become predictable, the moment your heart becomes an open book, you stop being mysterious and start being replaceable. And here's the dark reveal: Machiavelli would whisper, they let others believe they're winning while quietly steering the outcome. That's the hidden art of psychological dominance. You can still give, but only to those who've proven they can hold what you offer. True strength isn't about shutting off emotion. It's about owning it. Feeling everything, yet showing almost nothing. That's what confuses manipulators. They can't use what they can't read. Imagine standing in a storm. Everyone else panics, you stay still. Not because you don't feel fear, but because you understand fear doesn't deserve your reaction. That calm presence, that's how leaders emerge. That's how silent people hold power in every room. Machiavelli knew this. He wrote, "Men must be either crushed or indulged. They will avenge light injuries but cannot avenge severe ones. In modern terms, hurt someone slightly and they'll plot revenge. But leave them unable to understand you, and they'll never know where to aim." Uncertainty paralyzes people, and those who master uncertainty master others. But here's where it gets darker. Even you, the one who's listening now, are guilty of the same instinct. You've loved someone not because they were good, but because they were mysterious. You've craved someone not because they cared, but because they didn't. The mind confuses uncertainty with importance. That's how obsession is born. So the next time someone tells you to just be yourself, remember, authenticity without awareness is exposure. The world doesn't reward the open heart. It rewards the hidden hand that knows when to reveal and when to retreat. Because emotion in the wrong hands becomes leverage. And the moment someone knows how to trigger you, they own you. But wait, what if you could reverse it? What if you could learn to stay emotionally awake, but untouchable? To feel deeply, but act strategically? That's the next step. The deeper layer Machiavelli never wrote, because it wasn't meant for the masses. It's the art of emotional invisibility, where you become untouchable not by avoiding emotion, but by mastering how it moves through you. Unseen, unreactive, unreadable. And once you understand that, no one can control you again. Because when emotion no longer dictates your actions, you stop playing the game and start writing the rules. But that truth, the one that turns emotion into power, is darker than you think. And that's where we go next. It always begins the same way, softly. You think you've met someone who finally sees you, who listens, understands, mirrors your soul. You start to breathe differently, lighter. Your walls come down, and for a while it feels like peace. But peace can be deceptive, because beneath that comfort, something subtle starts to shift. So slowly you barely notice. They begin to ask for more of you, a little time, a little compromise, and because you care, you give it. Then they take a little more, until one day you're no longer choosing, you're complying. You've traded self-respect for harmony, and you can't even tell when it happened. You start censoring your truth just to keep them close. You begin apologizing for things that aren't your fault. You shrink your voice to avoid conflict. You mistake their silence for your mistake. But wait, do you feel that? That hollow ache right beneath your ribs? The one that whispers, "Something's off." That's not love. That's control wearing perfume. Because here's the secret they don't want you to know. The easiest people to control are the ones who crave peace more than respect. You thought you were being kind, but what you were really doing was negotiating for belonging. And they could see it. Predators of emotion always can. They study your eyes, your tone, your hesitations, until they find your price. Not in money, in validation. And once they find it, they own you. But wait, you miss something deeper. It's not just about them. It's about you. The part of you that believes love must be earned. The part that fears being misunderstood. The part that confuses being needed with being valued. That's where control begins, not from their words, but from your wounds. The truth is, no one can truly manipulate you until you start abandoning yourself first. Every yes you didn't mean. Every it's fine when it wasn't. Every time you stayed silent just to keep someone else comfortable. You taught your mind that your peace didn't matter. And the mind listens. It starts deleting your voice. Bit by bit, you stop standing up, not because you can't, but because you've forgotten how to. This is how empaths are broken. Not with violence, but with slow, invisible erosion. They'll call you dramatic when you finally speak. They'll twist your truth until you question your memory. They'll punish you with silence, not to forget you, but to make you chase them. And you do, because deep down you just want to feel safe again. But safety never comes from those who profit off your confusion. You start doubting yourself. You start apologizing for existing. And one day you realize you're walking on eggshells in your own life. But wait, here's the realization you've been avoiding. The person who betrayed you, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, was only showing you where you abandoned your own boundaries. Pain isn't punishment, it's instruction. It's the universe whispering, look closer. You gave your power away here, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's when the breakdown begins. The quiet collapse that feels like grief but is actually rebirth. Because you start realizing you were never weak. You were just trained to believe that strength meant silence. But silence is not peace. It's suppression. You don't find freedom by forgiving too quickly. You find it by remembering who you were before you started dimming yourself. Close your eyes for a second. Remember that version of you, the one who used to speak without trembling, who used to walk without seeking approval. They're still in there, buried under the noise of every should, every manipulation, every fake apology you accepted just to feel wanted. And when you start hearing that voice again, that's the power shift. It doesn't happen with anger. It happens with awareness. You start noticing patterns. The way people's tone changes when you stop agreeing. The way they withdraw affection when you hold boundaries. And suddenly, their behavior stops hurting you because you see it. Awareness breaks spells. You realize you don't have to chase closure. You don't have to explain your worth. You don't have to beg anyone to meet you halfway. Because that halfway always leads backward. And for the first time, silence doesn't scare you. It empowers you. Because silence, when chosen, becomes control. That's when people, not as loss, but as consequence. But wait, what if the pain you felt wasn't the end? What if it was the awakening? Because here's the hidden truth no one tells you. The same emotion that made you suffer is the one that can make you invincible. Empathy, when weaponized with awareness, becomes foresight. You start reading people before they speak. You sense tension before conflict. You see patterns before they form. That's not weakness. That's evolution. You start walking differently, slower, quieter, more deliberate. You stop explaining yourself. You stop seeking permission. And suddenly, every manipulator loses interest. Because the moment you stop reacting, their power evaporates. They can't play chess with someone who no longer moves from emotion. You become unreadable, unreachable, untouchable. You miss something beautiful. Every betrayal carries a message, not about them, but about you. It's the universe asking, are you done yet? Are you ready to stop giving your power away? And when you finally answer yes, that's when you stop being controlled and start becoming dangerous. Because danger isn't cruelty. Danger is clarity. It's the calm knowing of someone who's seen hell and no longer fears the fire. You start realizing no one is coming to save you. And strangely, that doesn't scare you anymore. It liberates you. Because once you stop waiting to be chosen, you start choosing yourself. And that's when the world begins to rearrange itself around your energy. People who once ignored you start to notice. Those who once used you start to retreat. Opportunities appear, not by magic, but because your boundaries broadcast a new frequency. Self-respect. That's the shift from emotional dependency to emotional sovereignty. You are no longer the victim of your own kindness. You are its master. And for the first time, you don't need to be understood to feel at peace. You don't need validation to feel seen. You've reclaimed the one thing they couldn't steal, your awareness. Because awareness is freedom. And freedom is the most terrifying thing to those who try to control you. They'll call you distant now, cold, arrogant. But deep down, they know you've simply become untouchable. You've stopped being a source of energy for others and started becoming the source of your own. That's when the pain ends, not because it disappears, but because it finally makes sense. You were never breaking down. You were breaking open. And what's about to rise from that silence is no longer the good person who was used. It's the awakened one, the quiet storm that can love deeply and never be controlled again. There comes a moment, silent, almost sacred, when you stop bleeding over what hurt you and start studying it. This is where the transformation begins. Not in revenge, not in rage, but in awareness sharpened into strategy. Because the ones who rise don't rise by chance. They rise by design. First, the shift feels strange. You start seeing everything differently. People, words, even silence. You realize that every interaction is a negotiation. Every emotion is currency. And every room, no matter how friendly, hides an invisible hierarchy. Here's where it all flips. You stop reacting to energy and start observing it. Where others see conflict, you see leverage. Where others see rejection, you see redirection. Where others see manipulation, you see blueprints. You no longer ask, why did they do that to me? You ask, what did that reveal about them? And suddenly power shifts. Because the moment you start decoding instead of reacting, you become untouchable. They can't control what they can't predict. They can't predict what they can't read. Let me show you a story, not fiction, but symbol. There was once a sculptor who spent years carving statues for kings. He poured his soul into every creation, perfection, beauty, grace. But the kings paid him in promises, not gold. They admired him, but never respected him. Until one day, the sculptor stopped carving for them. He began sculpting for himself, not marble, but silence. He withdrew, studied the patterns of power, the way people bowed only to those they couldn't replace. When he returned, he no longer offered statues. He offered influence. He told the kings what the statues meant. He didn't make art anymore, he made narratives. And that's when they finally paid him. The lesson? Creation is not power. Control of perception is. But wait, here's the turning point. The true strategy of transformation isn't domination, it's calibration. You start mastering response. Most people waste energy trying to control others. The wise control their reaction to others. Because when emotion no longer dictates your behavior, you become impossible to manipulate. That's the difference between a player and a pawn. The pawn moves when touched. The player moves by choice. And choice, quiet, deliberate, unemotional choice, is the most dangerous form of power. You begin to understand that not every silence is weakness. Sometimes it's the sound of control. You stop explaining yourself. You stop rushing to fix misunderstandings. You let others reveal themselves through their impatience. Because patience isn't passivity, it's psychological leverage. The one who waits the longest wins the most. You learn to hold tension, to watch people fill the silence with their own guilt, their own projections. And that's when you start reading the world like a map of emotions, egos, and motives. This isn't manipulation. It's emotional geometry. You see the angles before anyone else does. Here's where it all flips again. The same heart that once felt too much now becomes your greatest weapon. Not because it feels, but because it understands. You can sense motives under tone. lies beneath kindness, agendas inside praise. And you don't expose them, you just note them. That's power, not confrontation, but comprehension. Because control isn't about proving people wrong. It's about making them irrelevant. You stop needing to win arguments. You start designing outcomes. When they insult, you smile. When they provoke, you pause. When they pull away, you let them go because absence is its own message. Every move becomes intentional. Every silence becomes strategic. You're no longer reacting to the world, you're orchestrating it. But wait, here's the deeper revelation. The most powerful people are not those who dominate others, but those who master self-regulation. You become your own observer. You catch your impulses mid-thought, the urge to respond, the need to explain, the reflex to please. And you stop. You breathe. You wait. That pause, that sacred pause, is where power lives. Because in that pause, you shift from instinct to intellect, from chaos to clarity, from reaction to choice. That's how you rewrite your identity, one pause at a time. Now imagine this visually. You stand in a crowded room. Everyone's voices rise. Opinions, emotions, noise. But you're still. Your silence draws eyes. Your calm unnerves them. Because they can feel it, that invisible shift. The energy no longer flows to them. It flows around you. You've become gravity. People start adjusting to your pace. They speak softer. They choose words carefully. Not because you demand it, but because your energy commands it. That's not arrogance. That's energetic sovereignty. The room bends to the one who doesn't need it. You missed something important. Transformation isn't about becoming harder. It's about becoming clearer. You don't need to grow claws, you just need to stop handing them your throat. You don't need to change who you are. You need to change where you give your attention. Attention is the purest form of power. Where focus goes, energy flows. And where energy flows, reality reshapes. So you start choosing what deserves your reaction. Not every insult. Not every argument. Not every chaos disguised as concern. You realize protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's strategy. And that's when life begins to mirror your new frequency. Calm people appear. Opportunities align. Old chaos fades. Because the universe always rearranges itself to match the level of your self-control. But wait, there's one more twist. Power isn't loud. It's invisible. It's not in what people see. It's in what they feel when you enter the room. True control doesn't announce itself. It radiates. It bends emotion, shifts rhythm, commands silence. And you don't achieve it through dominance, you embody it through discipline. Because discipline is the bridge between awareness and transformation. Every small decision, to stay calm, to observe, to wait, builds an empire of quiet power inside you. That's how kings are made. Not by conquering others, but by mastering themselves so completely that nothing external can shake them. And when that moment comes, the moment you realize you no longer need validation, revenge, or recognition, you'll understand the truth Machiavelli hinted at centuries ago. He who controls himself controls the world. Because when you no longer react to manipulation, you dissolve it. When you no longer chase love, it finds you. When you no longer fear loss, you attract abundance. You've stopped playing small emotional games. You've become the board they're played on. And that's the quiet paradox of power. You win not by fighting harder, but by needing less. So the weak version of you, the one who apologized for existing, is gone. Not buried, evolved. In its place stands someone dangerous in silence, magnetic in restraint, and unbreakable in clarity. Because control isn't what you show the world. It's what you refuse to lose within yourself. And once you've mastered that, no one can touch you again. There's a moment when silence becomes louder than truth. When a man stops arguing, not because he agrees, but because he's learned how power really works. That's the moment you stop being controlled. But here's the hidden law, the one no one dares to teach. Power is never taken. It's always given quietly, unconsciously, willingly. You give it away when you explain yourself too much, when you fear being misunderstood, when you wait for approval before you act. Every time you bend your truth to keep the peace, you train the world to own you. But wait, what if the real cage was never outside you? You see, control doesn't begin with force. It begins with perception. If I can make you feel guilty for choosing yourself, I don't need to chain you. You'll do it for me. The clever ones learned this long ago. They realized that the most obedient people aren't the weak ones. They're the ones who believe they're being good. That's Machiavelli's cruel wisdom. Goodness, when unguarded, becomes a leash. You were never meant to be endlessly kind. You were meant to be balanced. But the world worships extremes. They told you to always forgive, to always understand, to never raise your voice. And in doing so, they drained your fire drop by drop. The hidden law works in silence. The more predictable your goodness, the easier you are to control. Here's the twist. Even manipulators obey this same law. The ones who pull strings also fear losing them. Their control depends on the illusion that you don't see the game. But once you do truly see it, everything collapses. Their words lose gravity. Their power dissolves like smoke. Because you no longer react, you observe. And in that moment, the manipulator becomes powerless. The ancient philosophers understood this. Lao Tzu called it the strength of water. Machiavelli called it the cold eye. Both meant the same thing. True control is quiet awareness, not loud dominance. You don't fight to win, you see to understand. You stop playing their game and build your own. That's the secret most people never realize. The ultimate power is psychological non-reactivity. When nothing disturbs your internal state, every external storm becomes an illusion. Think of it like a mirror. The more still it is, the clearer it reflects reality. But the moment you let fear, anger, or guilt ripple its surface, you no longer see truth, only distortion. That's how the hidden law feeds itself. Through your emotions, through your constant need to fix what others think of you. The more you chase peace, the more chaos follows. Because peace was never something you chase. It's something you command from within. But what happens when you finally master that silence? Something extraordinary. People feel it, the stillness, the grounded presence. They sense that you can't be emotionally bribed anymore. No flattery moves you. No insult weakens you. You've stepped out of their reality field. And that terrifies them. Because when you stop needing their validation, they lose their ability to shape your world. Now comes the paradox. The moment you stop controlling others, you become the one who truly controls yourself. That's the forbidden equilibrium where influence flows toward you, not from you. Machiavelli hinted at it. The wise appear gentle, but command fear. They act calm, but move the world. He wasn't speaking of cruelty, he was speaking of clarity. Power rooted in self-awareness, not aggression. In mastery, not manipulation. The hidden law of control is this: he who governs his own emotions governs all outcomes. People react to your energy before your words. They feel your certainty before they hear your logic. They submit not to dominance, but to the quiet gravity of someone who cannot be swayed. That's the final stage of psychological power: to influence without trying, to command without speaking, to lead without chasing. You think you've reached the end, but there's one more truth. Control is not the goal. It's the test. The test of whether you can stay human while holding the power to destroy, whether you can stay gentle while knowing the dark mechanisms beneath behavior. The real masters don't reject darkness, they integrate it. They walk with their shadows, and the shadows obey. So when you next face betrayal, manipulation, or guilt, don't fight the darkness. Study it. Understand its rhythm. Because once you do, you'll realize the darkness was never your enemy. It was your mirror. And what it showed you wasn't how to win against others, but how to win within yourself. The music quiets. The camera slows. The voice softens. The lesson lingers like smoke. He who sees the strings can never again be a puppet. It began with confusion, with that restless ache, the need to be understood, to be loved, to be seen. You thought the world was cruel because people lied. But the deeper truth was that you lied to yourself. You pretended to be smaller just to fit in. You silenced your fire just to keep the peace. And every time you did, the world took another piece of you. Until one day you realized something terrifying. You weren't living for truth. You were living for approval. But then came the fracture, the betrayal, the moment everything you believed in cracked. That pain wasn't your ending, it was your awakening. Because pain, when faced, becomes clarity. And clarity, when accepted, becomes strength. You began to see the invisible patterns. How control hides in kindness, how weakness wears the mask of morality, how goodness becomes a prison when it fears power. And so, piece by piece, you reclaimed yourself. You learned to sit in silence without needing validation. You stopped reacting to every storm. You became still, and in that stillness, you found your reflection again. Do you feel it now? That weight behind your calm? That quiet confidence that no longer needs to be proven? That's not arrogance. That's alignment. The soul finally remembering its shape. There's a strange peace that comes when you stop chasing control. When you stop trying to convince the world that you're enough. Because now you know you are. The fire that once destroyed you now lights your path. The pain that once silenced you now sharpens your perception. And the darkness you once feared, it has become your ally. You no longer run from it, you walk beside it. And that is power. But wait, here's what most people miss after awakening. Power isn't loud. It doesn't demand to be seen. It moves quietly like gravity. The most dangerous person in the room isn't the one who speaks the most, but the one who observes in silence, calculating, aware, unmoved. That's who you've become. The one who no longer chases energy, but draws it in effortlessly. Look back for a moment. Remember where you started, blind, kind, naive, believing goodness alone could protect you. Now, you've seen the architecture of human nature, the masks, the motives, the silent manipulations. And instead of hating the game, you learned its rhythm. You stopped fighting shadows and became the light that exposes them. Stillness, that's your weapon now. Calm, your unshakable armor. You've learned that true strength is not dominance. It's restraint. It's walking away when you could destroy. It's smiling when you already know the truth. That is the mark of the evolved mind. The Machiavellian paradox, to hold darkness in your hand, and yet choose not to use it. The voice slows, the camera lingers on silence. A breath. Then the truth lands like a prophecy. You were never meant to be good. You were meant to be whole. Goodness without strength is a wound. Strength without empathy is a weapon. But the union of both is power beyond manipulation. Now, you stand at the edge of understanding, no longer a victim of emotion, no longer a slave to perception. You've seen what most people never will. That control is not about others. It's about presence. And presence is the rarest form of dominance. Because the one who is here, fully awake, fully calm, cannot be deceived, cannot be moved, cannot be owned. The world around you will still test this power. They'll push, provoke, tempt, manipulate, not because they're evil, but because they're blind. Let them. Observe. Smile. For once you understand the game, you no longer need to win it. You simply stand above it, like the eye above the storm. You've come far. From confusion to awareness. From weakness to control. From noise to silence. That's the legacy of those who see, the few who walk through the darkness and return with light in their hands. The world will never know your battles. It doesn't have to, because true transformation is invisible, but undeniable. And when the silence returns, when everything fades, you'll remember this. The wise do not fight the storm. They become the stillness within it. So let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them play their endless games. You'll just watch, calm, certain, a shadow with a heartbeat, a mind sharper than mercy, a soul no longer seeking permission to exist. The screen fades to black. Only a whisper remains, soft, final, eternal. He who commands himself commands the world.